order. Welcome to the Goochland County Economic Development Authority. Do we have a quorum?
You do have a quorum. I can call a roll. Mr. Sloan?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Ms. Dearden?
Here.
Mr. Pittuck?
Here.
Mr. Schmidt is absent.
All right, we have a quorum. We will open the citizen comment period. We do have one citizen here. Welcome, Neil Spoonhauer. For those of you who don't know Neil, did you have any comments?
No comments.
Just here to listen.
Learn.
All right.
You spoke.
Thank you for coming. So I'll go ahead and close the citizen comment period. And has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from July?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
I'll second that.
Do we have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. And moving on to the treasurer's report. Do we have a treasurer's report?
Treasurer.
Right. The report from the county was in your packet. Thought it was.
I didn't see it in there.
Oh,
Mr. Chairman, we can
I can.
rectify and resolve that at next month's meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on then. Do we have any bills to be paid?
No bills to be paid. However, the finance department has requested a print from, I think it was the Wells Fargo account. Yeah. I'll have to get you the information. 'Cause
Okay, let me
thought
know.
it
I can
was
run
in
down
the-
there and get it.
Yeah, because they don't do printed copies
Right.
anymore, and they need it for the auditor. So
That's
I'm
fine.
gonna email you.
Just let me know. And then I realized that I forgot to submit my expense for the agritourism conference that had been approved. So I will bring that next month.
Okay.
Or I'll give it to you. How do I do
You can
that?
give it to me, and I'll make sure that Lisa gets it.
Okay. All right. We have a discussion on the EDA support of the county's broadband initiative.
Thank you very much. The first item for your consideration today actually is an adoption of, we're asking the EDA to consider adoption of an agreement between the EDA, the county, and Central Virginia Electric Co-op. This is no EDA funds. They are county tax rebate, similar to other programs that we have. Sarah, do you have that presentation?
Yes.
Pull that up. Central Virginia Electric Co-op has developed a subsidiary of their co-op that is now expanding broadband to all of their electric customers. And they are doing it point-to-point fiber. And
Okay.
they have a 5-year deployment plan to get all of their customers connected with hardwire fiber. This is not wireless to the homes. Their model is a little different. They're running it over power lines using their infrastructure. They're not burying it. And so it's a little different than some of the other fiber projects you'll hear or see. But they have a 5-year build-out plan, which they are already planning to be done in Cartersville in the next 12 months. And so our customer base sort of wraps down that southern part, southwest part of Goochland, and then sort of wraps up the Fluvanna side, and then you can see a portion up in the northwest corridor of the county. That's about 804 individual customers that will have access to broadband fiber. They will exceed 25.3 speeds. And they're planning in Goochland alone just a $2.5 million investment. Now, the way the utilities pay a different kind of taxing structure, actually, I think it's on the next slide. And what this agreement basically is, as they incrementally build out, they would qualify for a rebate of their construction and personal property tax after they have completed construction and have turned on customers and have proven that they made that investment to the system. They would be eligible for up to $125,000 of incentive back on their investment This is basically a zero-sum game for the county. This is funds we wouldn't be collecting today that we would only be collecting after their investment. For us, this is one of the types of incentives, amongst some others that we'll be talking about, that we're looking to do with providers to get our residents served in multiple fashions. This one happens to be a fiber source, probably the best solution that we're going to have, especially in Western Goochland. CVAC would have had someone here tonight. They have been a great partner. We're in fact working with them on some other grants. They are considering expanding outside of their network on Dominion infrastructure as well. They feel an obligation to their existing customer base, but they are making a substantial investment in their entire network. Part of what our investment here also does is it gets us in line sooner. And so while they have a 5-year deployment schedule, they can figure out where they're going to put their resources. The Board of Supervisors indicated early on general support for this, the way this structure works, just like our others. We will have executed agreements from CVAC tomorrow. It has to gain board EDA approval and consideration tonight, and then it would go to the Board of Supervisors at their September meeting for codification. They would not see any of these payments until the actual investment and taxes were paid into the county. And so for us, the board really sees this as something they wanted to get behind. Obviously, we can only do it with the authority granted to the EDA, as we have done others. And so tonight we're asking for the EDA's consideration and support to be this conduit for potential tax reimbursement incentive grants.
So they have to pay in, and then we reimburse?
Yeah, just very similar to the others. At the end of the year, there's a taxing true-up, and then we go back to make sure that they have paid in a certain amount, and we will pay them an incremental amount over a period of time. The one thing that's a little different with this one is because they may do different investment in different years, unlike Hardywood, they had a hard stop and immediately next year had a fully taxable amount. We may have to do some incremental measurement of, okay, these guys have made $1 million of their $2.5 million investment, and we'll pay up to this. At no point will it exceed about $125,000. We think when we ran some numbers based on these projections, that they will, and that's why you also see like a 5-year build-out kind of thing here. After 5 years, this is going to come back on the tax rolls. I would not be surprised, and I don't want that if they come in and want to do further expansion, that I wouldn't be back here talking to you about more of this. But this is the initial investment that they plan with their existing customer base. There is some business benefit to this in addition to the regular residential customer. We have some, obviously there's home-based business, but we also have some other up in the industrial park up in the North Haydensville area. Midpoint would be served. And so we think we'd like to recommend your consideration for supporting this.
What is the little years eligible for a grant? What does that mean?
Based on the year they actually do the construction, it's a rolling 5-year period from the construction.
Oh, I see.
But at no point will it exceed $125,000 total.
Got it.
And they file for the grant?
Well, the agreement that we have, and that's, thank you for asking that, the agreement that we have with them is a typical tax reimbursement incentive grant. It has been reviewed by the county attorney, and the county attorney has approved it to form. It's very consistent with what the EDA has approved in the past. I encourage your consideration and adoption of it tonight. That being said, the EDA certainly has a right to have that agreement reviewed by a separate attorney if you'd like to make that investment. There's a separate issue with your attorney right now. Their firm doesn't exist anymore. And so we're generally comfortable because this follows the form of the other agreements that we've done. But the EDA certainly, if you would prefer that and would have more comfortable with that, we would respect that.
But there's no liability to the EDA.
There is no financial liability to the EDA. We're using your legal authority as the conduit, and the funds actually come from the county. They get paid from the company to the county, collected, confirmed, come back to the EDA, and then get back to them. And so there is no, and actually, this is pretty typical of the kinds of grants that the county does. to limit the liability on the county's end, and assure that we actually get the investment that the, whoever it is, in this case it's CVAC, has promised to make.
Madam Chair, I would move that the EDA approve the broadband initiative that is enclosed, initiative agreement that's enclosed in our package, and I'd like to discuss that.
I will second the motion.
Madam Chair, one concern I do have is the fact that we don't have legal review of this, and I think it would be improper to almost even attach, due to scheduling, anything that would facilitate review prior to the county's and CPGC's need to get this approved. So that's my only concern with it. I mean, I realize the identification, and I think it is a very standard package that we have engaged in before. I just don't like the fact that we don't have council reviewing it. However, at the same time, considering schedule, I would not like to see it held up. So there is, to me, a slight fiduciary risk, only in the, I'll say, standard practice of having our independent council review this. So I would suggest that we do have the consideration of replacement of council tonight, and that as the EDA does acquire council, that we have the opportunity to come back and then open up anything with the county that might be an issue that's raised by that council. However, I do obviously trust the great management and leader of administrator of Goochland County, and I think the council is also outstanding too, especially considering what was just done with the voters. But still, that we would review this ex post facto and approve.
Is there any discussion? Any other discussion?
So you're saying that we trust the county council, but we reserve the right to have it reviewed on our own?
Basically, yeah, we should have it reviewed on our own. I think, I don't see much deviation from the standard forms that we've engaged in before. I think it, within the realm of protection for the EDA, looking at myoptically for the EDA, I'm not a lawyer,
right,
obviously, but I do see that there's limitations. It's strictly a pass-through. I mean, everything I see.
Right.
And so the pass-through itself and the limitations in there, it still gives us the right to do certain requests of CVEC. It does still give us the right to do protection against identification and other things that I think is satisfactory. So I don't see any flashpoints, but it's just, I have a standard practice, and I don't know if everybody else does, about not having, always have council review anything that I'm going to sign. So ex post facto, I would suggest that we come back to this, but I would still say go ahead.
Understand.
Madam Chairman, with all due respect to the EDA, if I can just ask you to give some consideration, knowing that you have another decision tonight on your own council, that if at all possible, once you make that decision, if you can ask for whoever, whatever direction we go into, to have that review complete prior to the Board of Supervisors meeting, and make your motion contingent upon attorney concurrence that the agreement is an acceptable form, so we can actually take our action in September. If not, I'll have to delay until October. But I don't think it's unreasonable, depending on which way you go with the council, and that would stand even if they don't get done by the September meeting. I would just have to defer that topic. You can't, technically, by the time it gets to the Board of Supervisors, it's coming with your approval, which you would assume is either with your comfort with the document or with attorney review. If for some reason there would be a change after the Board of Supervisors, you need to have some level of formal approval and comfort before the Board of Supervisors do so. And if it's the prerogative of the EDA to do exactly that. If you're not comfortable, I may have to delay until October with the Board of Supervisors. And that's not your fault, that's just the timing of how things are flowing. And
What's the date of that next meeting? Doesn't give us much time. So we have to choose a new legal representative, and then this would be teed up on top of everything else.
Or pass it, and, which is where I would lie, pass it, and then, if we can achieve council prior to that date and review, then, but if we don't, for example, if we don't concur on council tonight, which is an interesting thing to do, right? If we don't agree on council tonight, I would not want to see this, I would not want to see the EDA hold it up for what content I have reviewed.
I agree.
And I don't know if you guys have looked at it in detail, or I don't mean to say you guys, but, excuse me, my fellow members of the EDA have looked at enough detail to be
I was
happy.
prepared to support it tonight without a legal review, only in that I knew that were kind of in legal limbo, from our standpoint. I think this is a great way to bring broadband to an area of the county that needs it badly. If they're into it so much that, you know, they might, you know, jump on Dominion Power's equipment too and extend, even better. But like you, I don't want to hold it up. And if there happens to be this one time that timing is against us, then I think I would be inclined to go on Goochland's attorney recommendation and say, do it. I get what you're saying on the fiduciary responsibility, but there was nothing when I read it that kind of raised the hackles on the back of my head and said anything would come back at us.
I don't think we can reasonably expect to get a new legal representative and kind of jam them on this before September 4th. Right?
Oh, we could. We could, but I mean, you know, it's obvious that the.
Depends on how bad they want the job, right?
I mean, we got like 2 weeks.
if it does give the EDA any comfort, and I want you to be comfortable, the same form and language on the incentive is exactly the same form and language that you've approved in other agreements that was reviewed by your attorney.
Right.
If anything, I think it's cleaner and tighter now than it used to be. But certainly, I respect your need to be comfortable, and if we need to delay this for a month, just as long as CVAC knows that we're committed and we're moving forward. At this point, it's just a matter of queuing, and we're just trying to show them a demonstrated effort that we want Goochland to be a priority.
I think that's important.
So back to your motion. Dan?
You want me to call the question? I mean, I made the motion in the affirmative sense with that consideration in mind. So I mean, I'm going to vote for even, and not add ancillary council review. I would just encourage in our discussion upcoming that we do choose council rapidly and have them look at it just as a covering, but not hold up the agreement if we can't concur, for example, on council
I
time.
think that sounds good.
I'll second.
That sounds reasonable. Any other discussion?
Can I just ask for clarification? You're approving it. If the council can't get to it in time, you will accept the county attorney's review as concurrence, or do you require your attorney to concur? I know it's a subtlety, but I just want to make sure we understand the motion.
No, I
think we
would
have
not.
to accept it.
The motion doesn't really involve, it's only the discussion I brought up with council. So the motion itself does not involve any consideration of council. So I said straightforward affirmative position for approval. So therefore, I would say more administratively that if we do concur tonight on either new council or a method to acquire new council, that they review it. But that's not a precondition to approval or a post-condition after we approve that has to be rectified prior to going to the board.
Thank you.
I wanted to deviate it and also not put county council, because county council represents the county, and because she does a great job, not involve her in any, what should I say, cross way that would not be in accordance with
Thank you.
proper
Is there
guidance.
any further discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. It's approved.
Just one other thing under this particular, and we had talked last month. I'm going to talk to you a little bit further in close about a full broadband deployment plan that we're working on. One of the things I'd asked, and last time, was the EDA give some consideration to supporting jointly a county initiative on incentivization. Since we have met in public session, the Board of Supervisors has assigned their portion, which was $250,000, $125,000 assigned for a grant program and $125,000 for a loan program. When I discussed with the EDA last month, we discussed matching with an additional $75,000 each of those programs. At that time, I'd asked you, don't take any action, because we were still in the process. The Board of Supervisors have since assigned their funds. If the EDA is comfortable today, I would ask you, and you don't technically do assignments or an appropriation like the county does, but what I can assure you is until we go to appropriate the funds, and what it means for us, we assign, it basically means we lock funds for a particular use. However, they cannot be spent until we take an additional action to appropriate. Fundamentally, I'm asking the EDA to do the same thing, is to commit the funds to the program. At a future date, we plan to bring back to you and the Board of Supervisors the criteria for both of those programs. The loan program is going to have clear criteria and how it would be administered. That's going to be a critical component of the loan program. You know, I've shared with you some concerns about loans. We have to get that established and managed and those kinds of things. And the granting program will have to have criteria and how we leverage different funds to make the grants be more valuable. All I'm asking for you today is not so much consideration of the details of those particular programs, but to formalize a commitment of those funds to that program. And then I will share more with you about the other components. But clearly our strategy is going to include an incentivization program that will include the county 125 for grants, EDA 75, 125 for loans, EDA 75, bringing it to a total of $400,000 of funds for incentivization. There are other programs. We're going to continue to support these kinds of programs that we've asked you to approve here, amongst some others that I'll talk to you about further later this evening.
Last month, we discussed that, and I think we were mostly all in
Yeah,
favor
we
of it as a good idea.
Informally agreed on it last month, just as a discussion point.
Right.
Yes, and I didn't ask you to take an action last month
Right.
because I wanted to make sure the Board of Supervisors took the action that they needed to. If it didn't, we wouldn't have had the collective support.
So do we need a formal action
Yes.
then? So we need a motion to appropriate
You
the
can
funds?
commit the funds, and then, but we will not be asking you to allocate them or in any way, shape, or form until we come back to you with the program.
Do we commit the whole 150, or do we have to specify?
Half grant, half loan.
The way we did it with the board was a total amount.
Okay.
But I did read into the record that it was for 2 different programs.
So we're looking for a motion. Anyone so moved?
I can make a motion that we commit $150,000 to the program, to the broadband program, in conjunction with what the board has done. And you'll come back to us and give us the details at a later date.
Yes, and we plan late fall, early new calendar year to have the structure of those programs ready to roll out.
I'll second the motion.
Is there any discussion?
be just, in one sense, a repeat of what I was stating last meeting. I think it's within the purview of the EDA to support the effort. I think it's something that we have a fair number of funds available to do so, and we've got a lot of opportunity to enhance broadband for citizens within the county.
Good.
Thank you for making the motion.
I would just add that I think it's relative to other things that the EDA comes across. This is probably one of the most important as far as
I
I'm
think
concerned.
so, too.
On behalf of the citizens of Gidgee.
Stimulate economic
So-
activity.
A lot more home businesses, a lot less travel to different
Absolutely.
locations. Makes a
Good.
difference.
All right, well, let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. It passes.
Thank you very much.
All right, anything else on broadband at the moment?
None at this time.
Any new business?
Just wanted to give you a quick update. So Sarah and I have 15 projects that we're actively working between new and existing businesses in the area. 5 of those are new since our last meeting, so we've had it's been busy. So some of those are, Sarah working with existing businesses that are looking to expand or just need some of our help. We've received 1 new VEDP project, so we're averaging about 1 state project a month, which is more than we have seen in the last probably couple of years.
And is that as a result of your database, do you think?
I would like to think so. As well as I think Sarah and I just getting out and meeting the
Yeah.
VEDP staff and letting them know we're here, we're active, and we're
And just for the record, what does that acronym stand for?
Virginia Economic Development Partnership.
Okay.
Sorry,
It's
speaking
okay.
low. Yeah, so we got a new project, so we were actually able to submit for this one too. So we had a building that fit their some of their criteria. It was a pretty unique ask, but we still had something to submit, which is good. And then we've started receiving more brokers and things like that reaching out to us as opposed to us always reaching out to them, wanting to
Nice.
set up meetings.
That's good.
Yeah, so we're
exciting.
chugging along, and then we've got projects in the works that are kind of in holding patterns for the time being, but we're hoping that they'll move forward in the next couple of months, and we'll bring you guys some announcements.
Good.
That's
Great
it for the
job.
business.
So is that your existing business update as well, or do you have a
Nope.
different one? Okay.
So I just wanted to let you know that we've had 4 new businesses open in Rockville Commerce Center between the Rock Center Warehouse and McConnell Properties. One of them being Metallium 3D Incorporated. What they do is businesses say like, hey, I need a whirligig and it needs to look like this, and they send it to them and they do a 3D print of it and then make it out of metal or machinery, and then they just ship it back to their customers. The Shed, which is a rental company, so ideally they're going to have all sorts of tools. Say you need to rent a shovel for the day because you don't have a shovel, you can go there and rent a shovel for the day. So it is more geared towards homeowners versus commercial. Sunbelt is more commercial,
Yeah.
industrial type stuff. So Bavarian Auto Sales, they are currently located at 288, right there, right adjoining 288. They're moving from that location over to Rockville Commerce Center. And then Save More Machine Shop. That is similar, I think, to the Metallium 3D, but they do, it's basically a machinery shop, and it's a 2-guy operation. So I've reached out to all of them. I sent them welcome letters, handwritten from the county, glad you're here. So try to build some relationships as they come in. I sent you all a invite for Crown Roofing. They actually were located in the county for a long time, moved out of the county, now they're moving back in.
Okay.
So they're having an open house or a grand reopening on September 20th from 4:30 to 6:30. So if you can make it, just stop by and say hello. And then the other thing I wanted to go over with you is I spent several days going through NAICS codes and employment numbers for our existing businesses. Do you want to explain what a NAICS code is?
Yeah,
Maybe.
thank you.
So a NAICS code is a North American Industry Classification System. So basically every every company has a NAICS code. So your 2-digit NAICS code is your most broad, so it'll be manufacturing. And then once you get into 6 digits, it would be manufacturing metal widgets, and then manufacturing wood widgets would have a different number. And so it just gets very specific in terms of the type of company or industry that they are in. So I went through and analyzed based on what our existing majority NAICS codes are and what is a target industry in the kind of region, and then average number of employees, and then pulled out a list of businesses that I'm planning on visiting over the next year. All of those in gray, it goes all the way down to like 60 some. I'm not promising 66. I'm not promising that I'll make all 66 this year. With that being said, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 already scheduled and 1 already done. So I have Capital One, Luckstone, and CarMax scheduled, and Lehigh scheduled. So, and I've reached out to several others, so I'm in the process. The next kind of blocking, if you will, has a larger number of employees, but they don't necessarily fit into a NAICS code that we're targeting or that's a high growth area. And then the last block is just a lower number of employees. So ideally, hitting some of these will put me in a good position to really know what our businesses are needing, and I also have
The coincidence all the beer ones made it to your job?
that's a 4 o'clock meeting. This is a business retention survey that I have drafted. Now, when I go to meet with the businesses, it's not like I'm gonna sit down and say, what is your company name? What is your, right? So this is gonna be more of a conversational piece, but this is what's gonna be guiding my questions. I pulled from Hanover and Henrico's business retention survey and kind of pulled out what they did. So what they're really trying to get at is, when did you first start in Goochland? Because that's important, because I eventually want to do a, some type of yearly, hey, this business has been in the county for 25 years, let's celebrate them, and that kind of thing. Sales, whether they're up, whether they're down, whether their employment numbers are increasing or decreasing. So just anything that would send up some red flags, and whether I need to follow back up with them in a good way or a bad way, I can get it from this list. So wanted you guys to see that and to see the list of who I'll be meeting with in the coming months. And like I said, I have Capital One set up, Luckstone is set up, CarMax is set up. I've met with Performance Food Group and Lehigh Paving I meet with tomorrow. So working through that.
Plan.
Question.
Yes, sir.
The foundation for your list,
Yes.
is it from the business license list?
It is from the Virginia Employment Commission. The business license list, A, doesn't have NAICS codes, B, doesn't have average number of employees. So I can't really do an analysis, it's just a list with contact information. So I could not do the analysis that I needed based on the business license. However, I did pull the business license and I pulled the VEC list, and I went through and made sure that I wasn't missing anybody from the VEC list. So that was time consuming.
So the business list is not larger than
The business license list is larger
Okay.
than the VEC list because it also has all the home occupations in it. So off the top of my head, I want to say there's at least 500 home occupations. And so a separate project of mine is to go through the zoning business license list and pull out everybody that's a home occupation, so I have a good idea of who those people are, so I can actually send out letters in the coming year probably saying, I'd like to meet with you, or do you have any concerns? Are you looking to expand? That kind of thing. So it's a different list. I have like 3 lists.
And there's also a gentleman that started, and I was just curious about this list, if you looked at it, and and I think he's out of Charlottesville, originally perhaps DC, that started capturing a lot of other business intel that I thought he was trying to do a match. Well, I won't digress.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'll see if I can.
I'd be interested to see it.
And it was something kind of taking all the business lists, which you can't get because
You can. It's very hard to get.
but there's a database that somehow collects them in the Commonwealth that he did a FOIA on, and
Okay.
so it was
Probably
very
the Virginia Employment Commission is the
It
people that
could
collect
be.
them, and they have a pretty stringent system that you have to basically sign away the rights of your firstborn child to have access to. So
Yes. Okay.
I don't
Thank
blame
you.
them, but yeah. So that is my task for the next year.
Thank
Good
you.
job. Well, I also have some existing business. I wanted to let everybody know this is not public yet, so please don't say anything outside this room, including you.
I have to say, we
Other
are
than-
We're
live streaming and recording,
Well,
so if you
Okay, I will.
if
keep
you're not
it
ready
in
to make an
closed session.
announcement, yeah.
We're like, ah.
You can make.
I will keep it in closed session.
There you go.
Just hasn't been formally announced.
Right.
Okay, next, moving on, we need to formally appoint the EDA secretary.
And we would be asking for a dual appointment. We've been splitting the duties. I've been doing the packets and Casey's been doing the minutes, and so I think between the two of us, we might be able to replace Lisa. So a dual appointment, if you would, for that.
So, how do we do that? Just
It's just a motion.
a motion, okay.
Yeah, motion.
Well, I will move that we formally appoint both Casey and Sarah as the EDA secretary.
Thank you.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor? Yes?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion's approved. Thank you very much. I think it will work very well because you guys are a great tag team.
We try.
All right, now moving on to our discussion on the EDA council. Ben, I believe you had some ideas for us?
I have ideas, but I would only want the EDA to consider them based on the fact that they're my ideas, and I through council that we have business-wise, worked with a number of firms predominantly in the city of Richmond, and at least at this point, my consideration for council would, number one, that it be a Virginia-based entity, and from the standpoint of experience and size, I would suggest it needs to come out of probably the city, just because of you can't typically go to a local firm that has the experience to do what we need to have done. So I do have, we work with a number of firms, including Christian Barton, Spotsfane, and others that I have no problem approaching, but at the same time, they are firms that we use. So that's full disclaimer about that. And there are other previous representatives on EDA. For example, Mark Bowles works at McGuire Woods. It's another firm. Williams Mullins, a whole series of firms in Richmond. So I would suggest that I can throw out names, but I don't know the mechanistic way that we want to approach this. But we have to acquire
do.
counsel because.
Is this something that we have to formally appoint?
You can go about it a couple different ways. I mean, we can, if you want to task staff with bringing you some recommendations, we can pull and see who the other EDAs in the region are using. There is some value into getting counsel that serves other EDAs because they know how to structure these deals that you have authority to manage, and maybe bring you a few different options for your consideration, plus hourly rates and those kinds of things. If you have some you'd like us to reach out to, we can bring those back to you for your consideration. Ben has worked with firms, I've worked with firms. There are a number of people out there that do this kind of work, I think as we move forward, and I will just say that the structure of economic development deals has changed dramatically just in the past 10 years. I think it's going to get more complex. I think there's going to be more creative incentivization deals, and having a good counsel that not only knows how to keep you safe as an EDA, but also knows potentially things that we could do, and educate us on what authorities you have that might allow us to be more creative with businesses. And they get that not only because they follow the law, they get it because they're doing it in other communities. And one of the things it's even hard, these guys have beat the pavement and try to talk to other EDA staff and those kind of things. The deal side of this business, while we all claim to be regionally cooperative and stuff, they don't share it until the agreements are publicly adopted and all that kind of stuff where you can get copies of. It's really hard to get some of that. A good counsel can provide some of that stuff to an EDA, obviously client protected and those kind of things, but they'll have some perspectives of, help me appreciate what you want to accomplish. I can tell you some legal mechanisms that you as EDAs have authorities to do. We haven't traditionally, at least since I've been in Goochland, leaned on our attorney in that way. We basically presented them things for review, and often they were contracts generated by someone else for their review.
We have in the past a few times that I can remember.
Well, Katia, when she left LeClaire, wrote to us saying she would like to continue the relationship, and we didn't do that. We let it sit at LeClaire, and I know John Selbach was her next. He left as well. I mean, we can ask either of those two if they wanted to restart.
Didn't Katya move out of the state?
No, she's working for a firm that's
In
based
Richmond.
out of Baltimore. And she's
Oh.
working in Richmond for
Okay.
a firm that's,
Right.
Woodford, Taylor, and Preston, that's who she works for.
and that was my only, detriment.
The company she's working for is not a Richmond-based group.
Or a Virginia-based group.
Or Virginia.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a Virginia-based group, and just a,
Being new and not knowing
You're
the
not
past, my thoughts were if you have a chance to replace council, to do exactly along the lines of what John said. I think it's a chance to get someone who may have been around the block and who could give us as much consultative services as actual legal opinions.
Makes sense.
And I don't know anything about the past attorneys we've had. I agree fully that it should be a Virginia attorney. And most importantly, somebody who could say, you know, great meeting, guys, you're going about it completely wrong. This is how it gets done. You know, I do think there's value in that from an attorney standpoint, especially a guy who might be so well connected who can get some deals and get the word on what's going on, maybe to help us before, you know, other counties even find out about something. Not that attorneys would ever do such a thing, but
No.
you know, there is value to these guys because they do it every day. Having said that, I might know one, you know, so I do think there's value in coming back to us with some names that we may want to talk about. I realize there's urgency, but at the same time,
do it right.
you got a chance to
It's
do
a
it
marriage,
right,
yeah.
especially with the rapidly changing environment and the rapidly changing face of Goochland. I mean, we're going to be asked to do some things I think that we probably haven't been asked to do before.
Right. But I don't
So
think
this
we can
is-
speed this search up to satisfy, you know, a short-term goal. It's gonna take some time.
so, Madam Chair, may we ask the county administrator then to go out and,
Yes, and if you have any names that you want to throw into the hat to have them.
I have one in Spotsylvania, nobody in Christian Barton right now, but yeah, and there's,
Okay.
but, yeah.
Would that be okay?
You get us the name, we'll add them to the list, and we'll bring you some back. Hopefully we can do that by next month. We want to just make sure we're doing the diligence to have you make
Right.
better informed decisions. So we'll shoot for next month if we don't.
So what do they send us, their bios, or how do you?
Most of these,
Yeah.
but by the time we're calling, most of these names will be pretty apparent in the EDA world. Quite honestly, we're probably only going to have like 3 to 4 names for
Okay.
you.
Right.
It's not a big group of people that are experts at this. And then, you know, I will say that you know, in this market, there's biases for and against certain firms, and at the end of the day, you want the attorney that can accomplish the work for you, because every firm has pros and cons to it. It comes down to the individual attorney. I know, you know, this is an agenda thing. There's both, there's some female and male candidates. I'll bring them back to you that I know of already. If you have some others, we can bring it back to you. And we will have, but yes, to your question,
Okay.
they will be able to provide us sort of a dossier of their clientele and some of the projects they've worked on.
That would be helpful.
That may help you have some perspective.
Okay.
I think that, you know, like many of us, I've run companies, and I've had different attorneys. I don't have one attorney represent me all the time, and there are attorneys that are really great reputation attorneys, and then there's really attorneys that are common sense and get things done.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to find somebody who's more along the lines of the knows the law, but understands this inside and out, and knows what's realistic and not. You know, those are the best attorneys, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Sensible.
Sounds like a plan.
Good.
Thank you. All right, other business. Mr. Sloan.
I'll make a very quick statement. As I mentioned in a previous meeting, I was contacted by the county, Mrs. Barbara Pollock, and asking about the opportunity. We were recommended by Tyler, who has sold into the county the Munis ERP system, and that we were recommended by Tyler to perhaps be a vendor in conjunction with the Munis system to provide a service and a software. I represent, as you probably know, I'm president and CEO of Finite Matters Limited, which is one of Goochland's few software firms, and our software, one class of our software works with ERP systems, enterprise resource planning systems, of which CGI, SAP, IBM, Sherpa, and a whole series of other companies we work with, and we also work with Tyler and Tyler Munis products, along with some of their other products. As a result of some other business arrangements that are under mutual non-disclosure agreements, at least at this time, we as a company, Finite Matters Limited, are not going to take any direct contact with the county, because Tyler might be doing that directly in a different method than before, the way let's say arrangements might be made. So at least at this time, I just wanted to be forthright and disclose the fact that the county quite properly came to I'll say to our company and requested some information as a result of the Tyler inference and promotion of us. And at least at this time, because of discussions that are going on with Tyler and their management, we're not going to continue, at least right now, any further conversations with the county, simply because of what they're doing, which hopefully that doesn't bring any harm to the county, because that would not be our inference, but at the same time, or what we'd want to achieve. But at the same time, one of the aspects of council would be to review the fact that there is no conflict of interest or anything else. Our council, Christian Barton and Spots Fain, had declared they don't see any, but at the same time, it's an election season. There are other dynamics going on, and we would not even want to get involved in any type of situation where any potential conflict of interest would result as me being on the EDA, and the fact that the company that I'm president and CEO and one of the larger shareholders of would be in potential conflict in doing that. So I just want to make that declaration so that that's out there and there's no question about it.
Thank you for your transparency. Much appreciated. All right, is there any other business that needs to be handled tonight before we go into closed session? All right.
When-
You have to
take the
close.
motion.
To close.
I will. All right. In accordance with the provisions of sections 2.2-3711 and 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia, I move that the Goochland County Economic Development Authority convene in closed meeting for the purpose of discussion of a prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the business or industry's interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the community as permitted by section 2.2-3711 A1, and for the purpose of consideration of acquisition of real property for a public purpose where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the Economic Development Authority as permitted by section 2.2-3711 3 of the Code of Virginia.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, we are